Alabama has introduced a bill that would allow pregnant people to be charged with capital unaliving charges for abortion. And the way the bill's written, you could definitely be charged for a miscarriage. This is HB 454, ironically named the Equal Protection Act. The sole purpose of this bill is to amend the criminal code to allow for prosecution of pregnant people. For the purposes of the criminal code, it redefines an unborn child from the moment of fertilization. Pregnancy doesn't begin until implantation, so this is technically before you are even pregnant. It repeals the provision in the Alabama abortion ban that states that a pregnant person cannot be charged. This section right here from the original ban, and says the prosecution of these cases will be the same as the unaliving or assault of a person born alive. This is the part that allows it to be applied to miscarriages. It states that defense is unavailable if you intentionally or recklessly place yourself in a situation where you're likely to be subjected to duress. And not just reckless or intentional, also if you are negligent by placing yourself in such a situation. And because the bill says prosecution has to be the same as if this was a real live child, every miscarriage, abortion, and stillbirth could be subjected to that same level of scrutiny. This feels like a really good time to remind you that not only does Alabama have capital punishment, but they have the highest rate per capita. This is why I call them anti-choice and not pro-life. There is nothing pro-life about an anti-abortion position. If you ever interact with one of my videos, please let it be this one. If you're new here, my name's Dr. Kramer. I'm an expert on abortion care and access in the US. I travel around the country consulting at the state and federal level on this issue. By now, you've probably seen several creators talk about this data. Since the overturn of Roe, 65,000 pregnancies have occurred as a result of SA in abortion-banned states. People need to conceptualize what this number means. The data comes from this study, which pulled from 14 states. Roe has been overturned for 18 months. That is 3,611 pregnancies from SA per month, or 258 per month per state. That is enough to fill Madison Square Garden 3 1/3 times. That is enough people to fill the Detroit Lions Stadium to capacity. It is more people than the entire city of Daytona Beach, Florida. And this number is only from the 14 states that completely ban abortion. It doesn't include the states with 6-week or heartbeat bills. I researched this for a living, and this data is fucking terrifying. The Alabama Supreme Court has just halted IVF in the state by ruling that embryos are full children. They cited the Bible to do it, and this ruling could affect the entire country soon. 3 couples who underwent IVF sued after a break-in damaged their embryos. The Alabama Supreme Court ruled this was a wrongful death case because embryos are children whether or not they're implanted in a uterus. And they quoted the Bible for their reasoning. Now, they didn't make IVF illegal, they just functionally killed it, because no fertility clinic is going to take on that liability. Not to mention, they can't just destroy unused embryos anymore. Because according to the Chief Justice, human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God. So the embryos will require to be used or given up for embryo adoption. So how is this going to affect you even if you live in a safe state like California or Washington? Because if this case goes to our ultra-conservative Supreme Court, how do you think they're going to rule? And this has consequences far beyond making IVF unavailable. Because this makes an embryo a full child from the moment of conception, meaning before you're even pregnant. So no IVF in the state of Alabama, and if this goes to the Supreme Court, we're all in trouble. The only right guaranteed to women in the US Constitution is the right to vote. That's it. That's the only right you have. The US Constitution is far behind the rest of the world when it comes to equality. Women's suffrage is constitutionally protected, but the Constitution does not mention women, and it doesn't prohibit discrimination against them. So yes, if House Republicans federally pass the Life Begins at Conception Act, embryos will have more rights than anyone who can get pregnant in the US. We've been trying to pass the Equal Rights Amendment since 1923, but we needed 2/3 of states to be on board to do so. But we didn't get 2/3 of states to agree until Virginia did in 2020. The states in white have not agreed to the Equal Rights Amendment. So one more time, and I need you to hear me. If Republicans pass their federal Life Begins at Conception Act, An embryo will have more constitutional protections than the person who is pregnant. If you have a uterus and can get pregnant, listen up, because I'm about to drop some resources for you. I have worked as a consultant at both the state and federal levels around the politics and policies of abortion care and access. I was literally up until 4 o'clock in the morning last night talking to colleagues and contacts across the country, including our good people at Planned Parenthood, trying to figure out what we could do to affect the Supreme Court decision. The reality is that Roe v. Wade is most likely to be overturned in June, and Planned Parenthood v. Casey is right behind it on the chopping block. So I'm going to tell you what resources you do have available if you end up in a restricted state. First up, we have aidaccess.org. They can send you the abortion pill if you are 10 weeks or less pregnant. They can even send it to you if you live in a restricted state. The caveat to that is you may have to get it from a doctor in Europe, so it might take a little bit of planning ahead because it could take a while to ship from Europe. Here is the info on what they can provide depending on where you live and how much it will cost. Pause to read. And no, you do not have to be pregnant. You can order these ahead of time to have on hand in case you have an unplanned pregnancy. And if you go to shoutyourabortion.com, you can sign up for updates and information, and they have a whole host of resources on their site. And another fabulous resource is reprolegalhelpline.org. Here are some of the things that they can help with. And last but not least, the Miscarriage and Abortion Hotline. Pause to read. Make sure you keep your abortion as much on the DL as possible. Do not tell anybody who you do not 100% trust. And if you have to talk about it, do not send a text message. Do not send an email. Make sure you are only talking about it through an encrypted messaging system like WhatsApp, Telegram, something like that. This video is already getting kind of long. I can definitely share more resources in the future if people find this helpful. My best advice for you right now is to save these resources and order and stock up on abortion pills now for you and for your friends. Better to have them and not need them than need them and not have them.